Welcome to the Knowledge Seeker channel. The channel is dedicated to exploring critical issues in the world. Today's presentation is titled, Why Science Should Not Be the Sole Determinant of the Factuality of Knowledge. These are the various symbols that scientists use to represent science. The purpose of this presentation is to achieve two goals. One, to explore the issue of whether science should be the sole methodology in determining the factuality or truth of the knowledge of any phenomenon or thing or event or situation, considering that modern science is only about 600 years old in a world in which humans have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. And two, to find out whether scientific facts are temporary speculations, since science only focuses on the study of the physical, tangible, material quality of nature and disregards the non-physical, intangible, immaterial quality. To accomplish the goals of the presentation, the following arguments are made. 1. It is improper to regard modern science as the only yardstick in determining the factuality and truth of any phenomenon or thing or situation or event in nature and the universe. 2. The scientific methodology has only been able to uncover about 20 to 25% of the existing knowledge of nature and the universe. 3. Thus, about 70 to 90% of knowledge about any phenomenon, thing, or event or situation are already known through other methodologies. 4. Since science only focuses on the study of physical, tangible, material quality of nature and the universe, scientific facts are mostly temporary speculations. 5. The speculative nature of scientific factuality is that no amount of testing, experimentations, sampling, and physical observations can fully explain the complexity and dynamic qualities of nature and the universe. 6. Just as there are experts in modern times, there were also experts in the ancient times. And 7. Therefore, experts in modern times operating under the rubric of science cannot and should not underestimate the expertism of the experts in ancient times who were responsible for studying and advancing knowledge about nature and the universe. Now, what is knowledge? In broad terms, knowledge can be defined as information, facts, and skills gained through experience and education, resulting in the understanding of a subject or a phenomenon or a situation. In other words, it is the theoretical and practical understanding of a subject or a phenomenon in nature and the universe. This implies that knowledge can be gained through practical experience or education or both. Thus, the acquisition of knowledge is not limited to one methodology. Therefore, both the formally educated and the uneducated can be knowledgeable. This is the symbol that represents the formal educational system. Now, let's look at the influence of science on formal education. Since the European Renaissance took place in the Middle Ages in Europe, the formal acquisition of knowledge has been limited or restricted to the application of the scientific method to determine the factuality of any phenomenon or thing or situation or event being studied. It should be recalled that European intellectuals, artists, and scientists rebelled against the Christian Church for being intolerant and stifling of the freedom of expression, thereby retarding the development of scholarship, science, and technology. In the process, they called for the separation of church and state, rejected faith-based knowledge, and insisted on the application of reason and logic. Hence, they condemned any knowledge gained through faith, as religious authorities tended to do. The Renaissance greatly influenced the formal educational curricula in Europe by encouraging the dispensation of knowledge based on the scientific format through the application of reason and logic. The scientific method involves the study of the structure, characteristics, and behavior of the physical, natural, and social world through systematic investigation, observation, and experimentation. It is a process or a means to understand how the natural world works. Thus, scientific knowledge can only be acquired through systematic gathering, classification, and interpretation of data that have been carefully investigated, observed, and experimented upon. The scientific process requires the application of reason and logic. Why? Because scientists are convinced that everything in the world can be explained through reason and logic and not through faith. In other words, there are rational explanations for every phenomenon, event, or thing or situation in the world. This is why science is focused on the study of the physical, tangible, and material world. Due to the need to rationalize and apply logic, science rejects any knowledge gained through the study of non-physical, intangible, and immaterial world. The Western world spread the scientific view of knowledge throughout most parts of the world. Therefore, whether in Europe or Africa or Asia or the Americas or the Pacific Islands, to be formally educated implies being able to engage in discussion through the application of reason and logic. This is why, whether in Nigeria or Jamaica or India or Philippines or Germany or the United States or France or Russia, if two educated individuals are discussing and one seems to speak by focusing on faith aspect of knowledge, the other person might rebuke him or her for speaking like an uneducated person. The implication is that an educated person should speak based strictly on the application of reason and logic. This also contributes to the tendency of educated individuals to respond to a situation by saying there is no scientific proof. For instance, if two or more educated individuals were engaged in a discussion about alien beings or souls of the dead, the response is likely to be that science has not proven that aliens or souls exist. Therefore, there is nothing like aliens or souls in the universe. Why? Because they are likely to respond in that manner, since the formal educational system socializes students to only think and apply concepts that have quantifiable, physical, tangible, and material qualities that can be measured, observed, and experimented upon. The formal educational system propagates the scientific view due to the need to meet the reason and logic requirement of the methodology. This is why in school, evolution theory is taught while creationism or creation theory is rejected, except in religious schools. Unfortunately, most formally educated individuals fail to realize that the scientific method only focuses on the physical, material quality of any phenomenon being studied. Third, scientific knowledge is partial knowledge because it does not take the non-physical, immaterial quality of any phenomenon being studied into consideration. Despite failing to realize that scientific knowledge is mere partial knowledge, most educated individuals, like scientists in general, have been trained and socialized to believe that anything that cannot be scientifically verified cannot be factual or true. It is through this form of propaganda that science has been chosen as the only methodology to determine the factuality or truthfulness of any phenomenon or thing or situation. Hence, in the world today, anything that cannot be scientifically proven is considered non-existing or untrue. Now, how can modern science be the only determinant of the factuality or truth of any knowledge? It is puzzling. Indeed, throughout the world, educated individuals are so convinced of the factuality or truthfulness of scientific facts, even though such facts keep changing as new information is discovered. However, the question is, how can modern science, which is only about 600 years old, be the only methodology in the world to determine the factuality, reality, and truthfulness of anything or situation or event when humans have existed for hundreds of thousands of years before the development of modern science? How can modern science be the determinant of the factuality of anything or event or situation when science has only discovered about 20 to 25% of the already known facts about various things, events, and situations in the world? Again, how can a system that has only scratched the surface of the knowledge of nature and the universe be the only instrument to determine whether aliens or souls exist? These are the trillion-dollar questions that scientists and exponents of science should explain to the world. Now, let's look at the reasons why science should not be the sole determinant of knowledge of any phenomenon in the world. The following discussion identifies the reasons why science should not be the sole determinant of what constitutes knowledge in the study and understanding of nature and the universe. Please follow me along as I go step by step in identifying the reasons. 1. Science focuses only on the physical material quality of nature. The scientific methodology only focuses on the study and understanding of the physical, material, tangible quality of nature and the universe. This means that the method is ineffective in studying and understanding the non-physical, immaterial, and intangible quality of nature and the universe. However, it is the case throughout the world, especially in Africa, Asia, Native America, Native Australia, Pacific Islands, and some parts of Europe that nature and the universe have both physical, material, tangible, and non-physical, immaterial, intangible qualities. Even quantum physics tend to support the dual quality of nature. Hence, the Chinese have the concept of yin-yang to reflect the duality of nature and the universe. Africans, Native Americans, Indians, and so forth have no hesitation in saying that the world has dual characteristics, namely the physical, material, tangible, and the non-physical, immaterial, intangible. 2. Scientific facts cannot be generalized. Any knowledge acquired through scientific research, experimentation, and observation only deals with the physical attributes of nature and the universe, as indicated above. This means that scientific knowledge cannot be generalized as the finality in determining the factuality of any phenomenon or situation or event. The reason is that any result obtained from the study of physical, material quality of nature only provides a partial knowledge of the object being studied. 3. Scientific samples are too small to provide generalized conclusions. Many scientific facts are drawn from the analysis of small samples of the objects being studied. The reason is that the world is very complex and dynamic and is not easily controllable to generate appropriate data. Yet, the results of such studies are generalized with global implications. For instance, what was the percentage of the sample used to determine that anatomically modern human beings have only existed for 200,000 to 300,000 years? Did the scientists who computed the 200,000 to 300,000 year period for modern humans conducted research throughout the earthly landmass to come up with the conclusion, or did they generalize based on the samples gathered from a few fossil evidence? Of course, it is humanly impossible for human beings to conduct research throughout every part of the world to gather samples that could be used to generate a generalized conclusion about human existence. As a result, the scientific fact that anatomically modern human beings have existed for 200,000 to 300,000 years has been shattered by an African American from South Carolina named William Perry, whose DNA goes way back to 380,000 years. 4. It is irrational and illogical for science to be the sole determinant of knowledge. The pioneers of modern science, as indicated earlier, insisted that reason and logic should be the basis for making decisions about the factuality or truthfulness of any phenomenon or situation, and not faith. So they rejected faith. This is why scientists do not accept faith as a basis for understanding nature and the universe. It is irrational and illogical for scientists to maintain that no knowledge of any phenomenon or thing about nature should be certified as being factual without scientific proof. Indeed, it is irrational and illogical since modern science has only existed for about 600 years, while the knowledge of nature and the universe has gone on for hundreds of thousands of years. In other words, how can modern science, which was developed about 600 years ago, be the only method to determine the factuality and truth of any knowledge when other methods which have existed for thousands of years provide more reliable sources? It is like saying that a child understands the world better than an adult who has existed for decades before the child was born. It is only a very gifted child that can understand the world better than an adult. 5. The scientific fallacy of regarding existing knowledge as myths and superstitions. Since human beings have existed for hundreds of thousands of years, there is vast existing knowledge about nature and the universe that have been gained through other methodologies that have withstood the test of time. Yet, scientists tend to devalue the importance of such knowledge by referring to them as mythologies and superstitions, pending scientific re-examination of the same information in order to put a seal of approval of the knowledge that is already known. Why do scientists do so? They do so because they do not want to accept the view that a given knowledge about any phenomenon already exists. The reason is that if they accept such a view, then the importance of scientific knowledge would be greatly diminished. As a result, scientists prefer to maintain the view that every piece of possible knowledge can only be confirmed through scientific inquiry. By so doing, they increase the value of the scientific method. This is why if two educated people are discussing about a phenomenon or a situation or an event, one is likely to interject by saying that there is no scientific proof that such a thing exists. The need for scientific proof is responsible for scientists spending substantial amount of time studying phenomena and situations or events whose knowledge already exists in the world. They create the impression that the knowledge does not exist because the information is grounded in mythologies and superstitions until they lay a scientific seal of approval before announcing to the world that indeed the knowledge exists because it has been proven by science. This is very common in the West, where science is the mother lode of knowledge about nature and the universe. 6. Scientific facts rarely stand the test of time. Scientific facts are very temporary in nature. They generally do not stand the test of time, hence are constantly revised as new information crops up to nullify earlier scientific facts. The reason is that the samples often utilized to test, measure, and analyze to draw generalized conclusions about nature and the universe are often too small to actually account for the complex world. Thus, while scientists maintain that no information about any knowledge can be considered factual without scientific approval, it is the case that even the so-called scientific facts only have temporary quality in them because the facts keep changing, thereby rendering scientific facts as speculative predictions. Scientific facts rarely stand the test of time. There are many instances to show the temporariness of scientific facts. A. Scientists had estimated that human beings have been on Earth for about 200,000 to 300,000 years. New evidence shows that human beings have existed for more than 300,000 years. B. As indicated earlier, a DNA analysis of an African American man named William Perry in South Carolina found that his Y chromosome revealed a unique haplogroup that extends beyond the 300,000 years. That means that the scientific estimation was incorrect. C. Archaeological research study discovered human-made tools going way back to 600,000 to 700,000 years in Luzon, northern Philippines. D. While there is information indicating that the Egyptian pyramids, especially the Great Pyramid of Giza, has existed for over 10,000 years, scientists continue to maintain the view that it was built around 2,575 to about 2,465 years ago. E. For a long time, it was a scientific fact that ancient Egypt was the product of Euro-Asian civilizations. Well, it has been proven that Egypt was a product of black Africans before the arrival of other conquering powers. D. A DNA evidence has shown that Pharaoh Ramses was a black African, contrary to the scientific fact that he was a Euro-Asian. E. No day goes by without a scientific fact being demolished through new discoveries. Hence, a DNA test by an African American named Dexter Garvey, an Atlanta businessman, showed that he is a descendant of Pharaoh Ramses III of ancient Egypt. Mr. Garvey's face bears a great resemblance to the Egyptian pharaoh, thereby clearly indicating that the Ramses I, II, and Set I and II were black Africans. Another African American, Robert Ross, also referred to as King David, a resident of Charleston, South Carolina, received a DNA result which indicated a familial relationship or match with Pharaoh Ramses III of ancient Egypt. Another African American, Mr. Troy Williams, a journalist, too had a paternal familial connection to Ramses III. That is interesting. It destroys all the so-called scientific facts that have been established before. 7. Existing knowledge of phenomena or things or situations science cannot explain. Indeed, it is irrational and illogical to assume that no phenomenon or thing or situation can be confirmed to exist without scientific approval. Why? Because there is so much evidence of the existence of things science cannot explain in the world. Please follow me as I identify a few of those captivating discoveries that science cannot explain, apart from offering speculative answers. A. Massive tunnels known as puquios have been found underneath the Nazca lines in Peru. The engineering for the construction of the tunnels is so advanced, thereby repudiating the scientific view that people in the past were primitive and backward technologically. B. The Great Pyramid of Cholula in Mexico is considered the largest pyramid in the world, with a base 4 times larger than the Great Pyramid at Giza in Egypt and twice the volume of the Egyptian pyramid. The indigents call the pyramid man-made mountain and have always known that the pyramid exists. So they knew the pyramid exists even before scientists knew about it. C. A Greek mechanical device known as Antikythera is a computer-like bronze artifact. It is composed of interlocking gears and dials that was designed to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. It was found in a shipwreck in Antikythera in Greece. So that means that there were computer-like structures even in the past and not limited to today alone. This is the device. D. The Gilgamesh flood tablet that is estimated to be 3,000 years old is a Mesopotamian cuneiform text that describes a great flood. Some people have attributed the biblical flood story to have been taken from this tablet. Knowledge of this tablet has existed for hundreds of years. E. The remains of an Asian woman who had an artificial eye going back to 5,000 years was found in Bon City in Iran. Even after such a long period, the artificial eye was still intact. The discovery indicated that people in the past also had eye specialists who could design artificial eyes. Thus, advancement in medical science did not start 500 or 600 years ago. F. India's Atlantis. This refers to submerged Asian cities and or continent that rivals the story of Atlantis near India. In particular, the city is referred to as Dwarka and the submerged continent is known as Kumari Kandam. The Indians know that there is a submerged city and have written about it long before modern science came into being. 8. Societies in the past were as advanced as societies today, if not more. To disprove the scientific argument that people in the ancient times were primitive and backward, it might be necessary to show a few of the ancient scientific and technological masterpieces that baffle modern scientists. A. The Gigangita temples. In India, there are monumental buildings containing huge temples. The temples complex is considered the second oldest man-made structure in the world. Thousands of people go to India to visit the site. B. The Derinkuyu underground city in Turkey. The underground city extends to the depth of 280 feet or 85 meters and was capable of sheltering about 20,000 people. Here again you have thousands of people going to Turkey to go visit the underground city because they are puzzled how people in the past were able to build such an underground city. C. The Great Zimbabwe in Zimbabwe. This is a stone wall city that many early scholars attributed its development to Asians or Europeans that turned out to be built by African people. In other words, European scholars initially thought that black Africans were not capable of building such a great city, but it turned out that it was black Africans who built the city in the Republic of Zimbabwe today. D. The Chaco Canyon structures in the USA. The Native American Pueblo ethnic group built structures and dwellings into mountainous rock surfaces. Some of the structures seem to have been used for astronomical purposes. Every year, thousands of people visit the canyon to see the structures and be marveled at the capability of Asian people to build such structures. E. The Longhu Caves in China. These are a group of man-made caverns near Q River that are attributed to have been built between 206 BCE and 23 AD. Here again, thousands of tourists visit the place to see the cavern dwellings that people in the past built. These magnificent but advanced structures showed advanced engineering skills in ancient times. 9. Modern scientists should visit and consult with indigenous people in the world. It is time for Western scientists to leave the ivory tower and research laboratories and travel around the world to consult with indigenous elders, gurus, and shamans to document existing knowledge about various phenomena dealing with nature and the universe. They would be astounded to find out that some of the thorny issues they have been trying to uncover scientifically are already known to people in various parts of the world. It should be noted that German scientists took trips to India, Tibet, and other parts of the world to gather knowledge about ancient military technology. The trips probably helped them to develop the most advanced military weapons during the Second World War. The Germans knew that advanced Asian military technologies existed that defied gravity. It was surprising that Germany had the most advanced military weapons, including rockets, missiles, and flying saucers during the Second World War. Please learn from the Germans and travel around the world to document existing knowledge and stop creating the impression that nothing is factual until proven by scientific investigation. 10. Scientific replication of existing knowledge. The world is saturated with existing knowledge about nature and the universe. Therefore, most scientific and technological innovations today are mere replication of technologies that have existed before. As stated in previous presentations, many of the things that scientists are trying to uncover through quantum physics are already known knowledge in Africa, Asia, Native America, and Native Australia. Magical science, which is a combination of material and non-material sciences, enables the understanding of teleportation, telepathy, astral communication, and so forth. 11. It is improper to regard existing knowledge as myths. Currently, due to scientific influence, any pre-existing knowledge that has not gone through scientific re-examination is treated as a myth, even though it is a fact. This is unfortunate because there were advanced scholars and experts in the past just as there are today. In the past, evidence was compiled or gathered through drawings, hieroglyphics, stone carvings, writings, storytelling, physical observations, personal encounters, practical experiments, extrasensory perception, divination, oracular consultation, and alternate state of consciousness. So in the past, there had so many methodologies in studying and understanding nature and the universe. Conclusion. It might be necessary to draw the following conclusions or observations. 1. It is improper to use modern science as the only yardstick in determining the factuality and truthfulness of any phenomenon or thing or situation or event in nature and the universe, since other methodologies also exist. 2. Since the scientific methodology has only been able to uncover about 20 to 25% of the existing knowledge of nature and the universe, there is so much knowledge of the world that science cannot verify due to its concentration on the physical, material quality of any phenomenon being studied. 3. Since science only focuses on the study of physical, intangible, material quality of nature and the universe, scientific facts keep changing, thereby nullifying the factuality and truthfulness of scientific findings in a world with so much existing knowledge. 4. The speculative nature of scientific factuality is prompted by the fact that no amount of testing, experimentation, sampling, and mere physical observations can fully explain the complexity and dynamic qualities of nature and the universe. As a result, scientific facts keep crumbling as new information is discovered. The crumbling is prompted by the fact that scientists are trying so hard to study a human world that has existed for thousands of years, while modern science has only existed for about 600 years. To facilitate the process of updating information about the world, scientists need to take trips around the world the way German scientists did during the Second World War and consult with indigenous people, especially the elders, gurus, monks, shamans, sages, and so forth, who have advanced knowledge of the world. 6. Just as there are experts in modern times, there were also experts in the ancient times. And 7. Therefore, experts in modern times operating under the rubric of science cannot and should not underestimate the expertism of those in ancient times who were responsible for studying and advancing knowledge about nature and the universe. It should be noted that Archimedes was a mathematician, physicist, engineer, and astronomer. The Egyptian Imhotep was a physician, architect, engineer, astrologer, a sage, and a statesman. While this presentation might be critical, it does not take away the fact that modern science has contributed immensely toward the enhancement of the quality of life across the breadth of human society. The world increasingly relies on scientists to solve thorny issues and ensure a better world. Nonetheless, science should not be the only determinant of the factuality of any phenomenon or thing or situation or event in the world. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Please subscribe to the channel and listen to other interesting presentations on the Knowledge Seeker list. Once again, thank you.